You know, in 2008, nobody, including me, believed that LJ needed another church. I mean, here we are in our little bitty community, and we have like 100 churches everywhere you look, and they all want to reach our community with the gospel. Yet we had this inescapable call to do something. I didn't get it. I didn't think God had this down quite right. So we began to pray. And as we prayed, our prayers began to shift from prayers like, God, who are we to be used by you in this way? And God, why would you want another church in Gilmer County? They moved from that to prayers more like, God, how do you want us to do things differently in a way that others aren't? And who can we reach that others can't? God, how would you use us uniquely in our community? I never would have guessed that God would use me, but we said yes to God. And in 2008, we leveraged everything. We stepped out on faith. And in January of 2009, our little bitty launch team began to meet and to pray in a living room. We began to seek God's will on who He wanted us to be and how He wanted us to plant a new church in LJ. Frankly, we didn't think it was going to be possible. But with God, all things are possible. I'll never forget that Easter Sunday morning. We were launching the Orchard Church officially that Easter. We were opening for business on that Sunday morning. We had mailed out thousands of postcards. We had put ads in the newspaper. We would talk to anyone who would listen about the opening of this new church in Gilmer County. And we didn't know if it was going to work out at all. So that morning, before the service began, several of us were praying in the other side of the movie theater, the side that we weren't using at the time. And we were praying in there, and we just didn't know if this was going to fly at all. So we were praying, God, we just want to be faithful to you. You've called us to do this thing, and we've said yes to you. So God, we'll do whatever you want to do. If you bring people, great, but if you don't, we're going to follow you. And I remember being done with that prayer time and looking out through the glass doors at that movie theater and seeing the parking lot filling with cars and people streaming into the building. We had said yes to God, and He was proving Himself faithful. Since that time, we've seen God do incredible things through our little bitty church. We feel like we've been here taking a stand for the gospel in our community. We're downtown at all of the big community events, making a stand for the good news of Jesus. We're handing out water bottles. We're playing with children. We're opening up and making conversations, all in the name of Jesus. We are supplying children in the local schools with clothes and gifts at Christmas time. We're doing everything we can to be a light, a beacon in this community for Christ. And most importantly, we've seen God changing lives. We've seen a lot of people surrender their lives to Christ and become new creatures because of what He's doing in them. And it was just a little more than a year ago that God opened the door for us to move from being portable to permanent. And we had a great opportunity that we did not think we could get on top of. Our little bitty church had to come up with $90,000 to buy into the lease that would allow us to ultimately buy this facility that we felt like God wanted us to have. But we were looking around at the economy and our community and the size of our church and our giving, and we just didn't think that it would be possible. But with God, all things are possible. So we said yes to God. And in 90 days, the Orchard Church was blessed by God to raise $90,000. And today, we have been meeting for a year in our permanent home. Once again, we had said yes to God, and He was proving Himself faithful. You know, since being in our permanent home, the Orchard Church has experienced a lot of growth. There's a lot of people who are with us now that weren't with us before. We're really gaining more and more influence into people's lives for the sake of the gospel. And we're building credibility in our community. You know, now we look like a real church to them. And so people are just buying in. And when they buy into us, they're able to buy into the message that God has given us, that message of love and of grace. And now, because we're becoming permanent, we're much better positioned and much better grounded to be able to preach the gospel into Ellijay and Gilmer County and beyond. And now, in order to secure a loan in 2015, the bank wants to see that we can sustain in this facility. They want to see that we can be positioned well enough to be able to get the appropriate financing that we need so that we can fully become permanent beginning in 2015. So the bank has asked us to come up with an additional $20,000 between now and the end of the year. That sounds like a big deal. In fact, that sounds like it might be bordering on the impossible. But I'm here to tell you that with God, all things are possible. This is a great way to show the bank and to show our community that our yes is a yes. And that when we say yes to God, that He proves Himself faithful. We've seen Him do it time and time again, and I know that He'll do it this time as well, because that's what He does. He always proves Himself faithful when we say yes to Him. So I'm asking you to join me in saying yes to God in this way. What would happen if you said yes to God in this way? What could God do through you if you said yes to God? You know, you may not have been around a year ago when a lot of us said yes and were part of starting to become permanent. And maybe now could be your time to participate in what God is really doing here. Maybe you've said yes to Jesus in some ways. You know, you've surrendered your life. You walked to the front of an aisle, you cried a tear, you prayed a prayer, but you've never taken a real step that required actual faith. And now God may be asking you to say yes. What could God do through that kind of yes? What could God do through a family that decides to say yes in this particular and powerful way? I believe the Orchard Church is going to long outlast me and you. I hope that my grandkids are able to come to Christ and be baptized at the Orchard Church. I believe that the Orchard Church is already uniquely positioned to reach the next generation for Christ. And I believe that God is going to continue to bless in future generations if we are willing to say yes. So say yes to God with me. Let's raise this $20,000 and show the bank that we mean business because we know a God that provides when we say yes to Him. Join me in being a living description of Jesus right here in Ellijay as God leaves His mark on us and makes a lasting impact through us here in our community. We'll make saying yes as easy as possible. All you really have to do is to click over to orchardelijay.com. And when you go to our giving page, you can pledge and you can give in saying yes to God to help us to fully become permanent at the Orchard Church and to have a lasting impact on this community and our world. Won't you click over there today? Think about it, pray about it, and say yes to God.